You smell that? It smells like a dumpster fire. Oh, no, that's just Everytown for Gun Safety's new press release that they just put out. It's a masterpiece of misinformation and propaganda that I think is just so dang good that we just need to absolutely tear into. So we're going to talk about the press release that they just put out, and we're going to counter some of the claims that they're making and address some of the confusion that I think they have. Before I do that, I want to say thank you to the sponsor of this channel, though. It is Franklin Armory, the fine people that brought us the CA-11, the CA-7, and the CA-12, the 3 handguns on the California handgun rosters. AR pistols on the roster. Crazy times to be alive. Never thought it would be a thing. They also support people in the free states that can get things like binary triggers, which are just damn cool. In times like these, maybe not the best idea to be shooting rounds that fast, but hey, they're pretty damn cool products. I'm very happy to have them supporting the channel. They're not just slapping a fin grip on a gun and saying, hey, thank you, California, give us money and we will give you this gun. So it's very cool to have them on board. Thank you to Franklin Armory. Now, let's talk about this today. Everytown responds to new FBI data suggesting Americans bought 90% more guns in August than they did last year. Now, here's the crazy thing. The way they word that, they make that seem like it's a bad thing. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty stoked about that. So, continued surge in gun sales, increased risk of gun-related domestic violence, daily gun violence, unintended shootings, and gun suicide. We're going to talk about suicides and domestic violence in a moment, but I just really want to tack home right off the rip. Guns don't cause these crimes. Guns are just used in crimes by bad people intending to do bad things. So let's just get that real quick out of the way, because I know the second I say anything like that, people are going to comment away. Yes, I know. Feel free to comment. Feel free to say that. It supports the algorithm. If you want to rant and rave and talk about how guns don't cause crime, please do so. So let's just kind of read this article. Basically, this first paragraph is basically them just saying that the Everytown for Gun Safety and Moms Demand Action looked at the FBI stats and said that, wow, 3.1 million background checks were conducted in August 2020, which is 32% more than in August of 2019, which is just absolutely insane. Here's the part where it gets into their propaganda of policy that they're going to want to implement. So it says that the surge in gun sales is overwhelming our background check system. According to Everytown Freedom of Information Act, the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, NICS, is falling behind due to surging gun sales. Basically what this is saying is the national system that's supposed to be instant is taking too long. They're unable to process it. And then they come on to say that the FOIA revealed that 53% more checks than normal are taking longer than 3 days to process, which in other states typically means that people are going to be able to get their gun without the background check because of what they call the Charleston loophole. It's not a loophole. Here's the thing. They are making it seem like because the government is inept and incapable of doing their job, that we should restrict the rights of free people from owning guns. Here's an idea. If you want to implement these systems, how about you actually make them work? They're doing so and saying that, oh, because of these national background checks, which we have been saying is great, they've been ranting and raving about the efficacy of background checks for ages, and now they're saying that they're unable to even do them? I don't think that anyone should be punished because of government ineptitude. A right delayed is a right denied. If somebody can get their gun, they should be able to get their gun. If the government is unable to determine whether or not they are allowed to, which it shouldn't be that way in the first place, but if they're unable to do it, why are we punishing people? Then it goes on to say, due to this surge in gun sales, America's background check system is completely overwhelmed, meaning that thousands of guns are likely being sold to people who shouldn't have them. Now notice that they say likely. It's because they have no actual information to lead to people actually unlawfully obtaining guns. They are using a scare tactic here. The wording that they chose was very, very important. If they were to say that it is being sold to people who shouldn't have them, that would be making a false claim. But they're technically able to say this without getting in trouble because they're saying likely. They are assuming. They don't have any actual evidence that more people are actually getting guns illegally, which we all know. Anybody that wants a gun and doesn't want to do a background check can just 3D print their own gun and do all these other things, or go to the black market or steal one or buy one from someone that stole one. They're making it seem like these background checks are actually going to work and that they're failing and getting guns into the wrong hands, which people have been getting guns when they weren't supposed to without going through background checks in the first place. Anybody that's a real criminal that knows they aren't supposed to have a gun is not going to take the time to go down to a gun store, fill out a background check, potentially wait 3 days to get their gun. They're just going to go down to the local corner store where they buy all the illegal shit on the black market. I don't see why they think this is the actual problem. They're just so blinded by their guns bad mentality. So then it goes on to say, Mitch McConnell has had years to allow the Senate to vote to close the Charleston loophole, but he's decided it's more politically expedient for him to let bills die on his desk while Americans die in the streets. The ability for them to push the responsibility onto other people. Guns don't kill people. Bad people kill people. I don't see what is so difficult for them to understand about this. They're just so fixated on guns bad that they're willing to lie and make these claims and push the blame onto people that shouldn't have blame pushed onto them. I truly don't understand it. Now here's an absolute doozy. With protesters being shot in the streets and gun violence on the rise, more guns is not the recipe for public safety. Again, bad people will do bad things. People that can pass background checks are going to pass background checks. People that can't pass background checks are going to acquire guns illegally, as they've been doing since the dawn of guns existing. Now here's an absolute doozy of a sentence, but it is clear that President Trump and gun companies are recklessly fear-mongering every day, which is dangerous and wrong at a time when the threat of gun violence is on the rise and hospitals are overflowing with patients. Notice they say the threat of gun violence is on the rise. They're not saying that gun violence is on the rise because they don't have the stats to back that up. What they are saying is that the threat of gun violence, what is that? How do you measure the threat of gun violence? Because if you're not saying that gun violence is actually going up XYZ percentage, and if you're not talking about the actual causes of that violence, what are you actually saying? You're making a baseless claim that sounds good so that you and your anti-gunners can go jerk off into a corner and love each other. Then they're associating the ongoing pandemic with that. The reason hospitals are overflowing is because people are getting treated for coronavirus and the various other pandemics and whatnot going on right now. People are getting attacked in the streets. Nothing to do with guns. People are going to do bad things if they want to do bad things. A gun does not magically make you go kill someone. Me holding this Glock 19 with the pink-backed holster does not make me go, desire to kill intensifies. It just doesn't work that way. Then they just make this factual statement. The surge in gun sales has sustained through the pandemic. I think we all kind of thought that the gun sale surge kind of hit a peak in April, and we're like, oh, thank God that's over. I'm so glad for 9mm to go back to 20 cents a round. And then people started rioting in the streets. Not necessarily a good thing, right? So gun ownership has increased so much in the last few months that it's actually staggering. There are no more guns. Basically, as fast as a gun manufacturer can produce a gun and get it in front of a consumer, it is bought like that. You go to most gun stores nowadays and they're pretty empty. The guns that they do have on display are usually going to be spoken for within hours of them hitting the shelf if they're in any way, shape, or form adequate for defensive use. Now, they claim that they have polling that says that Americans are increasingly more supportive of gun control, and they talk about how that gun violence is more likely to be affecting people now that people are home, and that people are more likely to be going to domestic abuse, that children are getting injured more often. Well, here's the thing. You got people that are now being forced to stay home due to COVID. They're unemployed. Their businesses might have been lost. Their livelihoods might have been lost. They're stuck at home. They're depressed. Everything they're seeing on the news is depressing them. I am not going to be surprised if suicide rates skyrocket. But you know what we're not going to blame for that suicide rate? Guns. I would not be surprised if people are going to be getting in more domestic situations, because you know what people do that beat their wives when they are around those people more often? They might beat their wives more, which is shitty. That's a terrible thing to talk about. Domestic violence is not a joke. Suicide is not a joke. But you can't blame the guns. You need to look at the actual cause. The real cause for all those violent tendencies and those violent events occurring, including children dying or being affected by domestic violence, is because you're forcing people to stay home, you're removing their livelihoods, destroying their way of life, and forcing them to live a life that is depressing and putting a mental strain on them. I think 20 years from now, we're going to see a massive amount of studies coming out about the psychological damage that has been done to this country because of people being stuck at home for, it's just 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and now we're nearly 6 months into this. I think we're going to see a huge increase in the amount of domestic violence cases. We're going to see a huge increase in the amount of suicides this year. But you know what? It's not going to be because people bought guns. It's going to be because they were stuck at home, unemployed, broke and depressed. It's a terrible recipe for disaster, and the fact that they're going to focus solely on the guns is just such a waste of time. I really wish they would spend more time focusing on the actual issues like, depression, or maybe opening up the cities and opening up the states so people can start their jobs again and not be unemployed. It's just crazy that they're going to shift the blame onto that. For them to say that they think more people are going to want to ban guns, absolutely ridiculous. Nearly 5 million first-time gun owners in the first half of 2020. 5 million. Do you think those 5 million people are going to be in support of making it harder for them to get a gun after they just went through the extremely difficult process of acquiring a firearm in 2020? You think they want to wait longer? When people are buying guns right now for the first time, a lot of those people are buying guns for the first time because they're afraid. They're afraid of what the world might hold. They're afraid of what might happen if they leave their house because they might get drugged from their vehicle or attacked by a stranger. These are not the kind of people that are going to wish that it took longer for them to get a gun. Do you think someone that's struggling with domestic abuse situations wants to wait 10 days so that they can defend themselves from their crazy ex? No, I didn't think so. Now, one of the absolute best parts of this that I kind of wanted to say for the end was right here. Gun sales have been surging since the pandemic began, so it's impossible to identify the exact reason for this month's sales. I'm sorry, what? How do you not have an idea what could be causing people to be buying guns right now? They're afraid that riots are going to come to their suburbs. They're afraid that they're going to get dragged from their vehicle because they didn't do the right thing at the right time. They're afraid that they're going to be attacked. They're afraid that the government is going to come for them. People in general right now are not comfortable and are realizing for the first time ever that self-defense and personal protection is their own responsibility. Many people don't know that the police have actual zero legal obligation to protect you or help you in any way, shape, or form. Personally, I've been put on hold twice in my life by 911, both times in LA. Luckily, it was not for an emergency for myself, but a motorist who had gone off the road and was clearly not doing so hot. I was unable to stop in the traffic due to the flow of the traffic and whatnot, but I'm just thankful that it wasn't myself or someone that I cared about. But who knows what happened to that person while I waited on hold for 12 minutes and the operator on the other line said, "What do you want me to do about it?" when I described to them that I saw a car flip over on the side of the road going 80 miles an hour. What do you want me to do about it? Yeah, that struck a whole lot of confidence in me that the police or the paramedics will actually come help me in my time of need. The world is crazy, and in a time of craziness, it blows my mind that people would be confused about why someone would want to own a gun or think that anyone would support making it more difficult to own a gun. You guys know the drill though. Have fun, be safe, stay dangerous. Peace.